Hey guys, welcome back. Here once again with Glenn. I'm Nick with A+ Building Maintenance here at Toledo Handyman, and we're going to be talking today about different types of paint sheets. Glenn, every single day, I quote at least one or two paint jobs a day. Okay, and I know you talk to customers about the different kinds of paint, and I thought today it'd be really good. You know, let's once and for all let's cover the different most common sheens. The four most common: it's flat, eggshell, satin, and semigloss. There are a couple other ones out there. There's a high gloss, which isn't something that everybody calls for. You sometimes see it on moldings. And then you get the industrial oils. We're not going to get into that. All the paints that we're going to talk about today are latex and the four most common sheens that are out there. What's some of the questions people ask you about paint?
A lot of the questions that people ask me is the different rooms inside their home. They want to know what you want to paint your kitchen, what you want to paint their living room. They'll ask your opinion on it. At the end of the day, it's kind of up to what you want to see. But typically, when we start with flat, typically you see this on ceilings.
So if I was a customer, Glenn, obviously, I know how to answer this, but let's say I'm wondering, I want to know something. I'm like, Glenn, I got a ceiling in my living room. I had some water problems and stuff. What do I do to fix that water stain, and what do I paint my ceiling with? What would you tell me?
When it comes to painting a water stain, obviously make sure that the drywall is taken care of and that you have something sound to paint. Typically, go ahead and we ask you to use some kind of a primer. Kills typically is pretty well. Little tip, kills too. I know that they gave us an oil-based kills once. Smells, it's awful.
Yeah.
You'll kick yourself for that. But if you just go with
and now, Dr. Knock Kills, the Kills one is a very good product. Don't want to knock it, but they did specifically come out with the Kills 2 brand that has a low odor and works just as well, and it's a little better, in my opinion, easier cleanup.
Right. I'm not trying to dog on Kills. Flat, typically you're going to go with is using on ceilings. What you're normally going to see is flat white. After you go ahead and prime it, a lot of times it's going to blend in anyway, but if you want to go with the finish coat, flat white is typically what you'll see.
So on flat, the most common place we're going to see flat paint is on ceilings, but they also can sometimes be used on walls. So we may want to also add that sometimes use on walls. And then when I say that, flat paints are going to hide the most imperfections as far as roller naps, brush marks. It's going to cover with the less amount of coats because you're not trying to bring up the actual sheen of the paint. It's already flat.
Yeah, and then all the little imperfections, since it's a flat sheen, the light's not going to reflect off the imperfections and show them straight either. So.
And just to add, some of the ceilings, most ceilings are painted white. To get back to reflects, because white in itself reflects the light down. Now, Glenn, same customer, I'm like, Glenn, also I'd like to paint my living room walls. What would you recommend to me, man?
Typically, the living room walls, we just painted my home, so it's peak from experience. We went with an eggshell sheen. A lot of times they go with the satin as well. There's not a whole lot of a difference between the two. The eggshell is a little closer to a flat than what a satin is.
Eggshell is the most commonly used interior wall sheen. Most commonly. And the main reason is it's a durable sheen. It's still washable. Most common areas you don't want to have a sheen on the walls. You don't want to, because it's a common area. You're wanting to accent the trim. You're wanting to accent the different features you have in the room. You don't necessarily want these walls to be beaming at you. So eggshell is the most common wall sheen for all your common areas in your home. Now we're going to get on to the next sheen, which is satin.
Yep.
Where do we use satin the most at?
Satin we use a lot on walls, and we use it a lot on the exteriors. We use a lot on exterior paints. We have the satin sheen.
Satin is the most common exterior sheen. You're going to use that 90% of the time. And the reason is it's a durable sheen. It's going to have enough of a shine that it's not going to it's not too much of a shine that's going to take away from your home, but it's enough that it's going to let the water run off of it. Easy to power wash, very durable. Most of the time though, when you get into the higher sheens, once you get past eggshell, you can almost guarantee you're going to have to run 2 coats to get that sheen where it's supposed to be. And if you're not familiar with painting, you can go ahead and put 1 coat on, but we always say, this is what we do for a living, and we want to make sure you're happy with what you saw in the store and what you picked up. So we normally, once you go above eggshell, we got a 2-coater to get that sheen to pop. Because not only the color, because once that sheen comes out, it actually, I can put like a flat, a satin, an eggshell, and semigloss, the same color, but the sheen makes it look like almost by eye that it's different. And then the last one we're going to talk about today is called semigloss. And Glenn, where do we use semigloss the most?
Semigloss is typically used in kitchens and in bathrooms. Very easy to clean. Obviously, with bathrooms smaller rooms help shed light, brightens it up for you, depending on the color you pick. But typically in kitchens and bathrooms, we're going to see semigloss used.
We always recommend that everything in a bathroom, a kitchen, any high moisture area, use a semigloss. It's going to be very easy. See, when you get into the flats and the eggshells, what's going to happen is, since it's not that much sheen to it, the paint's actually a little more porous in my opinion, and it actually sucks the moisture. Semigloss actually puts a barrier on it, kicks that moisture off, easy to wipe down, easy to wash, but same thing, higher sheen, more of a gloss of a sheen, the more coats. So it's not uncommon, depending on what brand of paint you buy, to do 2 to 3 coats of semigloss to get that sheen, so you're not getting the roller marks, the nap marks, because what happens is the sheen isn't popping, and you're trying to get away. You're going fast, trying just with that one coat. You're rolling. When you back roll it, it'll look dry, but when you go up, it's shiny. We see that all the time. Like, that's one thing, because you could have done a great paint job, but because you didn't put that second coat, it's just like, God, this looks botchy almost, you know.
Yeah, you see the different spots in the sheens that are brighter than others.
And the last place we use semigloss, trim. I always recommend semigloss on trim. There's the other one, which is a gloss. If we've gone with the gloss, the only problem is depending on the size of moldings, sometimes that gloss is going to take so much away from the actual wall that I just go with the semigloss. It's the same thing, it cleans easy. Moldings always get touched, kicked if they're on the base. Definitely want to go with the semigloss on all trim. So I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to cut out of here for a minute. We're going to set up a couple things, show you the different products we use here, and hopefully maybe we can take out the mystery as far as how to do roller covers, why we use them, and the different paint brushes, okay? See you guys in just a second. Alright guys, what we did was we grabbed a bunch of different rollers and stuff, or roller covers for that matter, and you know, Glenn, you've been, you got trained a lot working here, you learned a lot, and I know we're going to ask you to talk about a few of these too, so I'm going to put you on the spot, see how much you've learned over these years. But basically what we did is I went and grabbed a few different roller covers, because people, I always recommend people can do this stuff yourself. I encourage it all the time. There was a time that I didn't know, you didn't know, and no one's ever, how many times have you been into the local supply house, the box store, and you're like, dude, you see all these roller covers, what do you buy? I mean, and they get expensive. And you're like, God, I don't know what to use. And you got lambskin, you got cloth, you got 1/2-inch naps, 1.5-inch naps, you got 3, what the heck, you know what I mean? And all you got is a brief description on the roller cover and hope that's right. So today, we're going to talk about the stuff that we like to use, why we use it, okay? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the most common roller cover out there. You're going to see these most of the time come in multi-packs, which is a 3/8-inch roller cover. Now mind you, every one of my roller covers that I'm showing you today are 9-inch. 9-inch roller is the most common roller you can get. They do have larger ones, and we do use the larger ones because we do a lot of painting projects, but we didn't want to get, we didn't want to make this confusing. Let's keep it simple. So 3/8 is the most common roller cover available to you. I'm promoting some of these brands here, but Wooster is probably my favorite brand to use as far as paint supplies. That's just my opinion. And you're also going to pay just a little bit more than your generic brand, but these wash out good, they're reusable. So 3/8, going back to that, is the most common, but it's mainly going to be used for smooth walls, maybe a very light texture. They don't hold a lot of paint, and this technically isn't my personal favorite to use, but it is the one I see people grab all the time, but you're always constantly dipping back into the bucket. My personal favorite that I like is actually a 1/2-inch roller cover. I think that's one of your favorites too, 1/2-inch. Holds a lot more paint. If we have some imperfections in the wall, it's going to cover real well, because when it comes to painting, you got to get that stuff applied, and if you're going with just an eggshell sheen, if you're getting a higher end paint, you a lot of times get away with one coat, and you don't want, most of us are working on these projects at home, we got other things to do. We want to get this paint on, get a good cover, get the most bang for our buck. So I typically recommend a 1/2-inch roller. So Glenn, I'm actually going to test what you know. I brought kind of a funky roller you don't see very often. That's this roller cover right here. What is it? Why would you use it?
This is a 1/4-inch snap roller. Typically, you're not going to get into using this too much. The applications that we use this for are for steel, metal surfaces along those lines. It doesn't hold as much paint, so you don't have to worry about the overages. If you were to put in something like your 1/2 inch and try to go over a smooth metal surface, you're going to have runs, you're going to have excess paint, it's going to be bad.
It almost looks like you put a texture on it.
Yeah.
It's not recommended. And this
is the most, typically what this is for. This is the most common when you're going to be using as far as metals and things along those lines. But you won't use it a whole lot in your own personal applications around your home.
And also, we also recommend these for oil-based.
Yes.
You know, latex is the most common. The EPA came along about 1.5 to 2 years ago. Oils aren't that easy to come along, but they are used in industrial applications and a lot of our commercial structures. We can still get them. But oil-based was really popular, and I'm sure a lot of you homeowners out there still have oil-based in your basements. You want to go with like a 1/4-inch nap roller. And one other tip, if you are going to use oil-based on metal, rinse this out really good before you start. Or all the fibers as you pull, because it's almost like a glue when you're putting it. That's the best way. It's not, but that's the best way to describe it. As you're rolling it, it's going to suck all them fibers off. Clean it really good with with some paint thinner. Clean it out, wring it out, get all the little fibers off before you start.
You're going to end up with a fuzzy wall.
You've done that before, haven't you?
Yes, I learned the hard way. That's the reason I know this.
I remember paying for that mistake. Okay, I'm proud of you, Glenn. You remember that one. Okay, here we go. What do we got?
Next up, we have a 3/4-inch snap roller. This is really popular when we're going over textures. A number of different textures it can take care of. It'll help go over knockdown textures. It'll go over a simple texture. This is really what holds a lot of paint. It gets into the different grooves as you're going over texture. If you run with something a little thinner along these lines, you're going to end up coating the top of the texture, and then you're going to have the color underneath still there.
You have to keep trying to work it in. It gets annoying. 3/4 inch is also another one. I'd say that's close to my top favorite, but 3/4 is because you're putting on so much paint, it's holding so much, it's easy to catch a run. That's why I go back with the 1/2, and I don't have to worry as much about running. But 3/4 inch snap is probably close. If I'm really applying that stuff over a heavy texture, 3/4 inch snap is the way to go.
Yes.
And then the big dog.
This is the big one. This is 1.25 inches. This is another one that you're not going to use a whole lot. But we have run across a lot of textures. If your home's anything like what my home was and some of these homes that we come across, there's some really aggressive textures out there. And this is perfect for that. Something that's really frustrating I know the guys talk about is when they get into some of these homes and they don't have one of these and they don't want to make that extra run, their jobs are tight, they're trying to get stuff done, and they go with a thinner roller. They're ending up going over the project 3 different times just because they can't get into where the texture is.
Yeah.
So this is a big time saver when it comes to that. Holds a lot of paint. You want to be careful with these. If you're going over something that's not as aggressive, because you are going to get runs, you won't get the finished product that you want.
We also use that when we're applying our textures like Stimples because it holds so much of the mud. Because when we'll get into that. We have a couple other shows we're real excited to show you. We're going to get into our projects here quite directly, but one of the things that we use this for is when we're texturing, we'll run this because it'll hold the actual mud that we mix kind of thing, and it'll coat it.
Make the job go pretty quick.
Yeah, you can slap it on. But also, like Glenn said, you have to be careful because it's holding so much paint. If you go overhead, it's going to fall on you as you squeeze it out. It's like taking a sponge going, and all over the place it goes. Okay? So Glenn, the next things we want to talk about is just a couple different products that I brought, which is the type of paint holder that I like to use and the type of brush. People have also asked me, what kind of brush do I buy? Because there's a lot of brushes and there's also paint holders. Check this out. This thing is cool. I usually buy this. These are the only ones that I buy. Now you can make this similar type of paint holder out of I've seen people do it out of coffee cans and then putting a little wire on it and stuff. Look, I like this, and what's really cool about this handy cup, they call it, it's actually got a magnet in here. Check this out. This is so sweet. You know, some of the paint cups we bought that don't work.
Yeah, how many of you have one of these paint cups and dropped your paintbrush and you don't?
This actually has a magnet inside it that holds your brush, so it doesn't fall into the paint. This is the only cup that I use, so I can be running around up and down my ladder, and I take that out and do my business. This is the one paint cup I think we all use. It's comfortable. It just holds there, and it holds. If you fill it up all the way close to a quart, I wouldn't recommend filling it that tall because you need some room to dip in and brush off. But this is the cup we use. And Glenn, I've introduced you to this a long time ago. Explain what this brush is and why we recommend it.
The brush that we're using here is an angled brush. This is good for cutting.
Yep.
When you're going around your doorways, you're going around your molding, when you're cutting in your wall to your ceiling. The angle on the brush, kind of make sure you're important the way you hold it, but this makes it a lot easier than just going with a straight brush. It almost holds the angle because the natural angle of your arm is already up here anyway. Yep. It makes it easier as far as trying to cut in around your moldings.
Yeah, and also the size. I always recommend a 2.5 inch angle slash brush. That's what this is. This is 2.5 inches. They have 2 inch, 1.5 inches, but I also like to carry a lot of paint with me because when I'm up high, I dip it in. I want to get a run. I don't want to have to. Your shoulder's going to burn up. You know. I like a bigger brush, and you're right, holding it. I always figure when I'm holding a brush, I want to hold it almost like a pencil. So, and I can't show this, but I'm going to try to explain it. When I'm cutting with a brush and I'm trying to cut my lines, I don't want to run a bunch of tape. Make sure when you're doing that and you have the brush down, pay attention to the bristles when you're coming along. Don't look exactly at what you're painting on. Look at the bristles as you come along, and you actually see a bead of paint as you're coming along. And if you just watch that and don't keep concentrating on the inside corner, you won't get paint all over the inside. Just watch the bristles. And I guess it's hard to explain it until you actually got a chance to work with
it
us.
a couple of times. Yeah.
But pay attention to the bristles in the paint that you're putting on. I think that's all I have to add. Do you have anything to add about this paint stuff today?
I think we pretty much covered it, Nick.
Hey, once again, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick with A+ Building Maintenance, your Toledo Handyman. And once again, Glenn came on, dragged him back out. He's actually wet today, but underneath the car. I was like, hey, get up here. You need to work with me. Hey, guys, if you have any questions, tune in. Go to ToledoHandyman.com. Email me, Nick@ToledoHandyman.com, or Glenn@ToledoHandyman.com, or call us, 419-478-1542. I'm Nick with A+ Building Maintenance, your Toledo Handyman. Hey, keep up the good work.